Community Forum is sponsored by the Easton Grange 196 and a friend of Yardley Wood Rink and the Easton Lions Club.
There's a storm across the valley, the clouds are rolling in. The afternoon is heavy on your shoulders. There's a truck out on the 4-lane, a mile or more away. The whining of his wheels just makes it colder.
Welcome to Community Forum. My name is Priscilla Almquist Olsen, your host, and today is January 31st, 2024. And I welcome to the program Nick Cidado. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did.
Oh, goody. And Nick is a 2014 grad of my alma mater, Oliver Ames High School. And he'll tell you a little bit about himself, but he has written this very interesting book with a more intriguing title. And the title is Sweat More During Peace, Bleed Less During War. Preparation Tactics that Generate Success. Now, we all want that for ourselves and for our children and our grandchildren, and we're going to learn a little bit about that today with Nick Cidado. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Of course.
Yes, and it's wonderful. We were just talking, and he remembers stories that I told when I was a substitute teacher in 2008 at the middle school. It's just amazing you could remember all that.
Yeah, it goes to show you that you can make a lot of impact on the younger generations. And here I am, whatever it is, 12, 15 years later, I still remember the stories.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. Well, I appreciate that. And I hope the viewers are going to remember this story. And this is an interesting story. So tell us a little bit, Nick, about your background.
Yeah, so I'm from Easton, Mass, born and raised. And, I grew up and I love this town. And it groomed and kind of paved the path for me growing up. And I owe a lot of it to athletics. And, I grew up playing 3 sports, football, basketball, baseball. And I had a lot of good coaches and mentors and teachers within, all the range in the elementary schools and the middle schools that kind of shaped who I am today. Yeah, so the coaches and the teachers that I have really kind of paved the path and helped me, kind of be myself and push me to what I wanted to do. And for me, that was sports. And I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to make my impact on athletes in the future generations. And so, from high school, I continued to play sports, and I played football at Bridgewater State University, played quarterback there for 4 years. And I studied exercise science because I was really interested in fitness and training the body. And mostly because I saw what it did for me as an athlete. I saw that you could work harder beforehand in the off season to prepare yourself to make sure, you're ready to go in season and you can be at your best and your peak level. So I played football. Once I finished up there, I started, looking for jobs, and, I really fell in love with that preparation process. And that's really what the book's about. And we'll get into that later, but it's really about the work that you do beforehand. And as an athlete, you see what they do on the field and you see them play in the games, but you don't understand the amount of work and the training that they do and the film sessions they're put through beforehand that sets them up for the success and the level that they play. So I just wanted to be a part of that. And so I was fortunate to work at a few private sector facilities in the Boston area. Got my master's degree at Merrimack College in exercise, sport, and science. And then I was fortunate to work a year at Harvard University with their strength and conditioning staff. And then right after that year, I was hired as a full-time strength coach at Boston College, and that's where I am now.
Wow. You are a happy camper.
Yes, I am.
Okay. And so tell me, how did it come about that you decided to write a book about what you have learned in terms of preparation for success in the sports world, and how it translated also for any person who, in any field, who wants success?
Absolutely. So kind of what I alluded to earlier, and I found out very early on that I love the training process just as much as I love playing the sports. So even though I was playing football, I loved the waking up early in the morning and weightlifting and running and conditioning and training my mind so I could be proficient at the sport, because I saw what it did for me once we got in season and played in the games. And so I did some thinking, and as a strength and conditioning coach, and when I work with these high level athletes, now I'm the coach. I prepare these athletes so they can go out and be at their best when they play. So I really did some thinking. I said, you know, these same principles and tactics can be applied to every single thing that everybody does. Everybody prepares in some capacity, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a leader in a company, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're a student, whether you're an author, doesn't matter what you're doing, we all prepare in some regard. And I really just started looking around, and, you know, you see some people that are very successful, and then you see some people that, you know, kind of miss the mark in some areas. And when I started to dissect that process, it really came down to what I call the expected result. And that equates to the work that you're putting beforehand. You set yourselves up for success based off what you're doing beforehand. And so that's what really inspired me, is my work with the athletes, but really that it could be applied to anything else. And, you know, I just think about even the job interviews I went on and the amount of prep work I did before I went into them. So when I stepped into that room and interviewed with all these people, I was prepared to answer every single question they asked me. I did my due diligence on the company, and I just felt ultimately prepared, and I created that result by the work that I did beforehand. So, you know, my goal of this book is to just share some of the principles and tactics that I've learned from great leaders within business, within the sports world, great coaches, and mentors that I've had in some of my own experiences, so that people can apply it to their own life and kind of reshape the way that they think about preparation so that they can create their expected result, which should be, and most of the time is, success.
Wow, that sounds really helpful, but also it's like a dream come true, isn't it, for a lot of people? Do you find that people are at odds as to how to organize, how to prepare themselves for this expected success? Do you find people just need help?
Yeah, I think it's such a simple process, but not easy, right? Simple and easy are very different. And by that, I just mean that if you go through the steps in some of these tactics that I share, it's very simplistic and anybody can do it. It's just, are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to be organized and plan your structure, plan your journey ahead of time? Are you willing to sacrifice a little bit along the way? Because sometimes that's what it takes. And are you willing to attempt to be perfect? You know, perfection never is withheld, but, you know, you can take steps to achieving perfection in anything that you do. So I really think it comes down to those three components. And I talk about that in the book, you know, being organized, you know, being disciplined and being willing to sacrifice, and then pursuing your vision of what success looks like.
And so I understand that you have been asked to be a speaker, and you've obviously shared these principles with many people. Tell us about your speaking engagements.
Yeah, so I do a lot of speaking with athletic teams. Coaches will bring me on and I'll speak to their teams just about the process. And ultimately what I tell them is that, you know, if you want to be a great elite athlete, and I've had the fortune of training professionals, you know, nationally recognized, you know, collegiate players, national championship winning teams I've been a part of at Boston College. And then I've studied elite athletes as well. And there's a common denominator there. And all these people are willing to prepare beforehand. They're willing to actually draw a blueprint and strategize a plan to get them to a point, instead of just hoping that it happens. A lot of people will allow their own, you know, intuition and their own skill to take them so far. But really what pushes the elite that I've seen, especially in the athletic world, is the people that have a direct plan and can stick to it. And sometimes that can be the difference.
Yeah, and sticking to the plan, that really requires discipline and also vision. People have to visualize their expected results. And a lot of people, just as you say, they just hope that their own inner guts and brains and so forth will lead them down the path to success. But that's not enough. Why?
Because it's up to chance, right? If you just hope it happens, That's definitely part of the process. My first chapter is about visualizing the moment, and you have to see yourself in that situation. So a lot of the things I talk about with the athletes and the teams is, first you need to see yourself holding that trophy. You need to see yourself, putting in the work beforehand. See yourself hitting that 3-pointer. See yourself going 3 for 3 in your best game. And then you need to, reverse engineer the plan backwards from that. What were the steps that got me there? And am I hitting all those steps along the way? So there's a point in the book that I talk about, a famous coach for NC State basketball. And what he would do with his team at the beginning of the season is he would bring them in the gymnasium and he'd have one by one climb up the step ladder and take a piece of the net out. So what that is when you win a championship in basketball, the last game, when that buzzer goes off, they bring that step stool out and every single player and coach gets to climb up that ladder, look at the crowd, smile, get the cheers, and cut off a piece of that net so they can remember it forever. And that signifies their championship win. So this coach, as part of visualizing the moment, would start the year with that process. In an empty gym, he wanted them to get that feeling of, this is where we're gonna be in 6 months. You're gonna be standing on that step ladder. And that's how the process starts. You have to see yourself in the position that you wanna be in.
So did you take psychology courses?
A few in my undergrad, yeah.
Did that help you in evaluating that this was something you wanted to write about?
I think so. I think as a strength and conditioning coach too, the athletes I work with, it's so much more than just prescribing exercises and sets and reps and what you should be doing from a physical standpoint. And it's more so having conversations with athletes about, what they're doing and, guiding them down the right path of, the correct training process and, how they cope with a coach and the head coach who controls their playing time and maybe they're not getting the playing time that they think they deserve and, how you're going to deal with that situation. So a lot of what I do is dealing with athletes on a more emotional standpoint. And that kind of what inspired this book, to your point.
So what do you hope to, when people read this book, what is the end result that you hope that happens in their lives?
Yeah, so this book is nothing more than just a blueprint of strategies and tactics that you can use to reshape the way that you think about preparation so that you can apply it to your own life. It's very simple in nature, and I make it that way on purpose so that it could be retained and then implemented for anything that you do. I try not to specify in certain ways, although my experiences are in sports. These can be applied to, like I said, business, relationships, education, and so on and so forth. And when you're done reading this book, I just hope that you can maybe grasp one tactic that you can think about and say, wow, I haven't put any thought into that before. Maybe this is that one thing I needed to drive me over that edge. And then for some people, it's going to reshape the way they look at it at all. And they're going to say, wow, I've never even prioritized preparation. I've never even prioritized the step-by-step process of the journey. I actually need to kind of self-audit myself and look at my approach to things and kind of fine-tune, some of those networks of how I progress in my profession, whatever it may be. So I think to answer your question, I think there's really 2 impacts that it'll make. There'll be that light bulb moment for some people on one thing, and then for other people, it'll just be a kind of a game-changing approach, mindset that they can take away and apply to their own life.
Wow. So you mentioned relationships. Now I understand you're married. Did you practice any of these steps with your wife?
Yeah, I think she was actually one of the first people to read the book. And, she loved it. And this is who I am. This is a very authentic book. And again, it's all my own philosophies that I've kind of cultivated from other areas and other people I've learned from. But, some of the tactics in this book regarding relationships is, everything that I've been talking about, visualizing, what you want your relationship to be first. And then along the way, are you going to sacrifice things that are going to change that? If this is the way, me and my significant other want to be, and this is kind of let's take communication, for example. This is how we choose to communicate. Why am I going to let other areas kind of get me away from how we should be operating? And after reading the book, you'll kind of learn some preparation tactics that you can use to make sure that you keep that level of communication intact so that you don't lose that. And that's just one example. But yeah, she was one of the first to read the book, and to tell you the truth, she's really the one that kind of pushed it forward and said, you have all this done, you should try to reach out to some publishers and some agents and see where it goes. Because I didn't know any authors personally, and I knew nothing about the process of writing a book. So I had to be vulnerable in my own regard, and it's good to have people around you that will help push you.
So how did you find a publisher?
Yeah, so I relied on Google a lot. Once the thing was written, I sat down, I was like, so now what do I do? So initially I had a family friend look at the book who is a retired literary agent. And I just wanted to know, can this book sell? Do you see value in it? What do I need to change? And I got some pretty good feedback. And obviously things needed to change and all that. And but that was kind of the second reassurance that I should continue to push this. And so from there, I started to reach it out to agents just over email. And this was her recommendation as a retired literary agent. Reach out directly to them with a query letter. Tell them what the book's about. Tell them, what you stand for and what you do as a profession, and who you look to make an impact on. And then from there, see where you go. So I ended up getting a few bites from some agents, got some good feedback from them, and then ultimately they kind of set you up with a publisher. And then once you're in a publishing house, they really take care of everything in terms of marketing, distribution, and all that. And you're going back and forth with an editing team and external design of the book, internal design of the book. And it was a really good learning process for me because, like I said, I didn't know any author. I don't know anyone who's written a book before. So it really challenged me and pushed me out of my comfort zone, which I preach about in the book too. I think that's really important for people. So I'm glad that I could kind of showcase this by actually writing the book.
Yes. And so now I understand that it just was released a couple days ago?
Yesterday, actually.
Yesterday.
Yesterday was the publication day, yep.
Well, I guess I got you right at the right moment.
Yep.
You must have been ecstatic.
Yeah, it was a really exciting day. And I work with, we have 650 athletes at Boston College, and they were all really excited to see it come to fruition because it's been available for pre-order for the last 2.5 months. And even before that, all the athletes I trained knew I was writing it, and they've been really excited to see it.
So where can one order the book?
Yeah, so it will be available over the course of 30,000+ online booksellers. And to name Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. You can get them at those vendors, and like I said, there's 30,000 book vendors available online where you can get it. I'm also looking to get it at Paperback Junction here in Easton.
Good.
And then in a few Barnes & Noble's brick and mortar stores, it will be available there as well.
Okay, so the name of the book is Sweat More During Peace, Bleed Less During War, Preparation Tactics That Generate Success. And so that really is the key theme, isn't it? Preparation tactics to generate success.
Exactly. And just the title of the book there, so Sweat More During Peace, you can kind of interchange some of the words to make it more sense to viewers here. But, sweat is that preparation. And you want to sweat more, prepare more during times of peace. So that when a time of conflict comes, the war, there's less room for bleeding. And bleeding means, failures, mistakes. So it's about working harder when everything's in a controlled state so that when you do face adversity, you're ultimately ready for it.
Yeah, and you're ready, you're prepared.
Exactly.
Oh boy, I get the message. Do our viewers get the message? And if you want to really get the message, go online, go to Amazon, or go to Barnes & Noble or our local bookstore, and pretty soon you'll have it there.
Hopefully, yep,
Okay.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. And I'm sure that Nick Cidado
Yep.
will certainly make that happen. You are a very determined 28-year-old young man, and I'm sure this is not going to be your first book. So have you thought about the topic for your second book?
Yep, I already have a title picked out. I have not put pen to paper yet. I'm really just trying to focus on marketing this book and reaching as many people as possible.
I don't want you to tell the secret. We don't want anyone else to grab that idea and beat you to it.
Exactly.
So we'll keep that under wraps. But this has been wonderful. And so any parting words you want to say? You talked about Easton and growing up here. How did that childhood impact on the culmination of writing this book?
So I think it's just what I learned growing up here in Easton is continue to push myself out of my own comfort zone. And I think I was surrounded with a lot of like-minded people, as far as football, basketball coaches, baseball coaches, just along the way. And, my friends growing up with. And, I was fortunate to be around a lot of high achievers and people that wanted to push. And I think that's just instilled in me. And I think a lot of athletes have that. And, kind of what I'd say to anybody is, continue to do that for yourself. That's where you grow the most. You got to be vulnerable in some positions and put yourself out there. But ultimately, you'll learn a lot about yourself and where you want to go. And that's what will continue to push you forward.
Yeah, now you mentioned that you were a quarterback. Were you also a pitcher?
Yep, I was a pitcher as well. I was a quarterback, graduated 2014. So, the team and my coach, we had a very successful year, our senior campaign. I remember that like yesterday. And then I had a good experience playing at Bridgewater State too.
Yeah, well, you just seized on the golden opportunity because everybody wants to be a quarterback. Not everybody can. The quarterback is the one, if you have a bad quarterback, you're not going to win a game. So, you were on the right track when you were a quarterback to write this book.
Absolutely, yeah.
And also a pitcher. How many people can be a pitcher, a baseball pitcher? Very few people. All right, most people are in the outfield, they're a shortstop or first base, but pitchers, that is a special breed. And that requires so much discipline. And I would say preparation. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And I talk about that in the book too, is part of being a quarterback is the whole week ahead is game planning and strategizing. And as a quarterback, you need to know everybody's responsibility on the offensive side as the leader. And you also need to understand defenses so you can dissect it and attack it. And, to your point, that's where I learned a lot about myself too. And that's a great analogy because that's what sports teaches you. Football is the ultimate team sport, and it takes some physical capacity. You have to have the arm strength and the physicality and athleticism, but it's such a mental sport too. And a lot of this book is about the mental aspect of things because as a quarterback, oftentimes you get a lot of the blame when things don't go as well, but you also get too much of the praise when things go well because it is a team sport. And just because you're the leader and you get the ball every single play, you're always going to be looked at in a different light. So that taught me a lot about leadership.
And what about basketball? You must have been a forward.
Yeah, I was a small forward. I played the 3 position. Yep.
I know. That was my sport. And my mother is in the Olive Ames Hall of Fame.
Oh, that's awesome.
She was a basketball player, field hockey at Olive Ames, and then she almost made the Olympics in high jump.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah, she was a real athlete. And I was told that she was the most popular and best forward in all of New England. And back in those days, they played just like the men. And when I came around in the 50s, we were playing this half-court ridiculous thing. And my mother would come to all the games, of course, and she would say, "What? This isn't basketball. Where is basketball?" But so were you a playmaker? I mean, most of the time it's the guards who are the playmakers. But how did you prepare for being a forward on the basketball team?
Yeah, so I think it's like anything else. You kind of have to know your part on the court. And I was very fortunate to play with some really good basketball players, 1,000-point scorers, some of them already in the Hall of Fame. And I just had to kind of know my part. And I wasn't on the basketball field or court, I wasn't going to be the guy. I wasn't going to be the playmaker. But what I did do a good job and what I focused on is what I could contribute to the team, which was, rebounding, playing solid defense, and making the shot when it came my way. So, yeah, more my impact individually was in the football field, less on the basketball court, but I really loved playing both.
Yeah, that's great. So, what are your plans now for the future? How are you going to promote this book? Do you have book signing events lined up?
Yeah, so book signing at Boston College with a lot of the athletes and the alum will come back, and that'll be really fun. But other than that, social media is really big for marketing now, and so I really have to use that to my advantage. But other than that, I'll continue with my speaking engagements, talking to a lot of athletes, even down to the youth levels. I primarily work with collegiate sports now, but I really think you can make a large impact on the youth athletics. I mean, dating back to our conversation earlier today, I remember the things that you told us back in 2008, all that time ago. So I hope I can do the same for the younger generations in the sports world.
Great. Well, Nick, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Such a pleasure. You have so much information, and this book is going to put you on the map, shall we say, and I'm really excited to see you produce that second book. But for now, this is so important in the lives of young people today, because many people don't have a map how to move toward their goals. And once they have a goal, they need some direction, they need preparation, they need to enjoy the journey, but also to be very disciplined. And this book will help. So mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers out there, you might want to pick up this book and give it to your child or grandchild at the appropriate time. Nick, thank you for joining us today, and best of luck. I know you'll succeed. You already have. Continue the journey.
Thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And this is Priscilla Almquist Olsen. Today is January 31st, 2024, and this is going to be a good year, not just for you, the viewer, but also for Nick Cidado and all of his future aspirations. So thank you for joining me today. Priscilla Almquist Olsen. Until next time, be well.
Community Forum is sponsored by the Easton Grange 196 and a friend of Yardley Wood Rink and the Easton Lions Club.